Hi, everyone. Thank you for sticking it out with me. I'm the only thing standing between you and drinking. So I am going to do a 22-minute talk in 15 minutes. And it's about why are we so bad at doing good, which is a really, I think, important question. So I'm going to paint a picture of the world that's maybe slightly less exciting than you might think. Every day, 21,000 people die of hunger, 65 million people are forcibly displaced at this very moment, 836 million people suffer from neglected tropical diseases every year, and 1.5 billion people live in extreme poverty their whole lives. So if that's the case, why is there only one Elon Musk? Now, Elon is a proxy for what I think of as an amazing entrepreneur trying to fix big problems. What if there was more than just one? What if there were 4 or 16 or many, many, many more? And the reason I ask is because entrepreneurs solve problems, and it turns out that the best entrepreneurs solve the big systemic problems. In other words, we need more people like Elon Musk. But it turns out that most entrepreneurs are busy doing something. They're already working on businesses. So how do you get people that are busy working on businesses starting to think about doing good? So you have the handy Venn diagram. Doing good on one side, building your business on the other. The middle section is obviously doing good while building your business. So let's explore the reasons why that is or isn't a thing that happens. Maybe some reasonable assumptions. The first reasonable assumption, we should start a CSR department at our company. We make money, we have people, these people want to do good with their time and with the money that we generate as a business. Let's start a CSR department. So assumption 1, CSR is the answer. So it turns out that most CSR programs are an afterthought. And absent a really intense mandate from the executive team, a dedicated CSR person coming into a business that's already established is going to be under-resourced, misunderstood, and unempowered. And it often just is virtue signaling. It also doesn't really align with reality. It tends to be a time suck for the thing that your business is meant to be doing, which is generating profit. And finally, you can have unintended consequences. When you try to do good, you might actually do some form of harm. I'll give you an example. Does anyone know who this guy is? Raise your hand if you know. You might know him from Tom's Shoes. His name is Blake Mycoskie. He's the CEO, but he calls himself the Chief Giving Officer. And Tom's is interesting because they sell shoes, and for every pair of shoes that they sell, they give a pair away for free to a child in the developing world. Started in 2006, and they launched this one-for-one model. And in the last 13 years now, they've given away 50 million pairs of shoes in 70 countries. That's pretty crazy. And in doing good, in this one-for-one model, Bain bought a controlling stake in Tom's that valued the company at $625 million. A lot of money. The model has caught on, and it's been copycatted a ton of times, seemingly to good effect. But it turns out that good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes. So 10 years after they started, Tom's commissioned an impact study about their one-for-one model. And the World Bank did a cluster randomized trial in 2016 with 1,578 children across 979 households in El Salvador. And what they found was pretty staggering. There was no effect on overall shoelessness or shoe ownership, no effect on general health or foot health, and no effect on self-esteem. In fact, it was a mixed negative on self-esteem. And so what this means is that programs can actually do harm. What it did typically, right, in this specific example, was it disenfranchised local producers. When you drop a bunch of shoes from another part of the world into a market where they sell and make shoes, you can't compete. 79% of the children surveyed who had received Tom's shoes believed that others should provide for their needs. So it created cycles of dependency. And it turns out when there's 800 million people in the world suffering from extreme poverty, maybe the thing that they need is food, and you can't eat shoes. So, to Tom's credit, to Blake's credit, they addressed their impact problems. They now produce in local economies. They've chosen models that are less disruptive and not actually doing nothing. So they now do safe births, and they help mothers get nurses. And recently, they just raised a bunch of money to end gun violence in the US. So you can fix it, but you have to be like deeply, deeply committed. So let's cross out this reasonable assumption as not super reasonable. Next assumption, let's just leverage our team to support local charities. Most founders are really proud of their teams and their employees. Well, let's explore that. My team is really good at stuff. We can help with our brains. So it turns out that charities are really complex, like most businesses. And understanding takes time because there's legacy systems, there's politics, there's perhaps some of the complexity that every business faces. And if you think about the onboarding time to get up to speed, it would sort of be like having an internship program that looked maybe something like this, where you had an intern come in for 3 days of the year, 1 day every 4 months. It would be sort of like chaos. This is supposed to repeat. It's a pretty fun GIF. But they'd be pretty bad interns. And so the same is true if you bring really smart people into really complex situations that they don't understand. There's also a really high opportunity cost of time. So if you think about what you could do with your money as opposed to your time, you might be able to do quite a bit more with your money. And it turns out that Band-Aid solutions rarely help. And in fact, disruptions can also be counterproductive. I'm just going to leave that there for a moment and let that sink in. So the point is, keep the main thing the main thing. If you're a business that sells something really well. Make a lot of money so that you can start to give some of it away. But think about how you could do that main thing in a really responsible way. That's a talk for a different day. So let's cross out this not reasonable assumption. And then let's explore one final one. I should just donate to charity because charity is good. Seemingly good idea. So let's actually explore this. Are all charities equally good? So my job is to talk to founders every day and get them to commit to give some of their money away. And I talk to a lot of them. And every founder I talk to asks some version of one of these 3 questions that I'm about to put up. One is, does it matter which problems I give to? And the answer is yes, it certainly does. Some problems are more difficult to fix than others. Some are easier to fix. Second question is, are all solutions equally effective? And the answer is no, they're not. Some solutions are way better than your average solution, or your, at the worst end of the spectrum, really bad solutions. And finally, can I trust my intuition? The answer here is a resounding no. With the best of intentions, we rely on assumptions that often aren't tested. So let's not rely on assumptions. Let's actually ask the important questions. So not all charities are equally good. And at Founders Pledge, we exist to help founders make better decisions, entrepreneurs make better decisions about how to give their money away effectively. So we want to make the biggest difference, all else equal. And we start by trying to compare things. So we'll do a quick show of hands here. We have 2 funds, Fund A and Fund B. Fund A returns 4%, Fund B returns 11%. These are all compounded annually. They pay out over 10 years. All else equal, who chooses Fund A? Raise your hand. No hands are raised. Who chooses Fund B? Everyone's hand should be up because that's the better choice. The difference is $1.5 million over 10 years or $3 million over 10 years, right? It's a big difference. It's like a small pile of money or a really big pile of money. And the same is true of charities, except that the difference is not 50% better. The difference is tens or hundreds of X difference. So here's a sort of representative example. And the thing to keep in mind is when this, oh, wrong way. The thing to keep in mind is with this last slide, you're talking about something you can quantify like money. Impact is much more difficult to really understand. So here's what impact is. Looking at HIV/AIDS in low-income countries, here are a couple of interventions that we could select. And it shows the amount of good that's being done as an output, a disability-adjusted life year, a hybrid metric. And so on this scale, you want to do more good than less. So you could do the expensive treatment for Kaposi sarcoma, or you could provide education to high-risk groups and achieve 10x the impact. Pretty clear choice. So how do you do this? Why aren't we following the data in the way that you can with a business? Well, so we at Founders Pledge try to focus on 3 main things: the focus area, the intervention, and the charity. So we start at the very top. The focus area, we look to areas that are tractable, where we have a good chance in succeeding when solving those problems. We look to issue areas that are scalable, where they really affect a very large number of people, and that are also neglected. Given the size and the scale of those areas, how many people are working on them, and how much money is being put into this. And there's a law of diminishing returns. So the more people working on an area, the less marginalized or neglected it is. So we really want to focus on those areas that are both big in scale, that we think we can solve, and where there's not much resource being put into them. Then we focus on at the intervention level, and we care about the evidence, and this is sort of the key component of it all. We don't want to rely on untested assumptions. We actually want to understand how impact is being calculated. Is it being tested? Is it seen as a counterfactual? Are we understanding the causal impact? So we care about evidence. We care about outcomes, and the outcome is a really important thing. Outcome is the thing that we want to achieve rather than an output, which is an operative along the way. So we don't care about how many wells we drill. We care about, as a result of the wells being drilled and as a result of people having access to water, how have their lives changed as a result of that water? That's an outcome, and that's something that we can measure, and it's something that we can compare. We also care about cost effectiveness, of course. It's not the most important thing, but we really want to understand that charities aren't skimming some off the top along the way. And then finally, we look at the charities themselves. We look at organizational strength, the quality of their team, their experience, the transparency, how forthcoming are they with data, and the room for funding. So can they productively use our next dollar or pound? So why isn't this a real thing already? Well, here's the reason why. So of the five largest for-profit companies in the world, by market capitalization, the oldest one was started in 1975, right? Of the five largest charities in the world by assets that they hold, the youngest was started in 1910. Now there's a disparity here, and it's weird. And if your eyebrows aren't raised, they should be. This is not the way that charity should be operating. And the reason is because we don't actually have a market-based mechanism to iterate and to test. So if you look up at the top, you have a phone. You have the same person that pays for it as the person who uses it. The consumer pays. The consumer uses the phone. It has a market-driven solution. And what that means is that 50 years ago, the phone was rotary, and today the phone is smart because the market can act on it. And users, buyers, can express their preferences by purchasing one thing or not. International aid has remained static since international aid has been a thing. We have a donor who pays for it, a recipient who gets it. They don't talk to each other. There's no market-driven solution to it, so there's no iteration, there's no testing, and it's the reason why aid has remained the same 50 years ago, and it's the same today. It doesn't work. So what this means is that smart investors lead to smart products, smart consumers lead to better products, and smart donors lead to better charities. So this is about you. So reasonable assumptions. I should donate to the very best charities is the theme of my talk today. And I'm going to reframe it in what the world is like. We still have 21,000 people dying of hunger every day, 65 million people forcibly displaced, 836 million people who suffer from neglected tropical diseases, and 1.5 billion people who live in extreme poverty their whole lives. Well, that's why we're here. Founders Pledge is a community of entrepreneurs finding and funding solutions to global challenges. And we are a mechanism for entrepreneurs, and here's how we work. Or here's who we are. Haha. I've changed the order of the slides today. Here are some of our members. These are the founders or investors in these companies. We now have quite a few of them all over the world. We've listed most of the fintechs that are here today that are also our members up on this slide. And here's how it works. So I ask every entrepreneur I meet to make a conditional statement, if then. Most are tech, so that makes sense. So the if is, if you make money selling your business, then you donate a small percentage of what you make when you make money to the charities or social causes of your choice at that point. Really simple statement. Pretty much everyone can make it and be held to it. And 4 years in, we have 1,200 members that span 30 countries. We've raised $1.8 billion in legally binding pledges, and we've seen $360 million of pledges fulfilled. Something that's working. And we've thought about this a lot. So why should I make a founder's pledge? The answer is it's flexible. You commit to give now, and then you figure out how to give later. It's bespoke. So we are not trying to lump people into one bucket. We're saying, let's approach you as you with your values and help you optimize for impact in the way that I've just described so that you can give to the best charities in the world wherever they are, whatever your preference is. So you can give to any nonprofit anywhere in the world. It's streamlined. We have a dedicated support team, 36 people globally now who work for Founders Pledge full-time, whose sole purpose it is to make it really simple for entrepreneurs who are growing big, exciting businesses to give back when they have success with them. It takes a couple of minutes. There's no impact on the cap table. Investors don't need to approve. So here's, I have a minute left. Perfect. Giving to charity is easy. This is like the thing that I want you to really walk home with. You could pull out your phone and you can Google best charity for X, and you find 100 results, and you could donate in a couple of clicks. It's super simple to do that, but it doesn't mean that it's the best way to do it. So you can give to charity really easily, but giving good is really difficult to do, and that's why we're here to help. So with that, I say thank you and good night. Enjoy drinks. Enjoy my, you can go to our website, founderspledge.com, email me or tweet us. And I hope you've enjoyed the first day of Innovate Finance Global Summit. Thank you.